Hello everyone. Here we are for chapter 3. Everyone did amazing on the questions, by the way, for chapters 1 and 2. Thank you for being so thorough. I hope that you had a chance to watch my mini lesson on how to make your question answers detailed and explain using transitional sentence starters. The Hatchet Chapter 3. Going to die, Brian thought. Going to die, gonna die. Oh my goodness. His brain screamed in sudden silence. He wiped his mouth at the back of his arm and held his nose down. The plane went into a glide, a very fast glide that ate altitude, and suddenly there weren't any lakes. All he'd seen since they started flying over the forests was lakes, and now there were none. Gone. Out in front, far away in the horizon, he could see a lot of them. Off to the right and left, more of them, glittering blue in the late afternoon sun. But he needed one right in front of him. He desperately needed a lake right in front of the plane, and all he saw through the windshield were trees, green trees. If he had to turn, he didn't think he could keep the plane flying. His stomach tightened into a series of rolling knots, and his breath became in short bursts. There, not quite in front, but slightly to the right, he saw a lake. It was L-shaped with round corners, and the plane was nearly aimed at the long part of the lake, coming from the bottom and heading up to the top of the L. Just a tiny bit to the right, he pushed the right rudder pedal gently, and the nose moved over. But the turn cost him speed, and now the lake was above the nose. He pulled back on the wheel slightly, and the nose came up. This caused the plane to slow dramatically and almost seemed to stop and wallow in the air. The controls became very loose. Feeling and frightened, Brian made a push in the wheel and moved it back. This increased the speed a bit, but filled the windshield once more with nothing but trees, and put the lake well above the nose and out of reach. For a space of 3 or 4 seconds, things seemed to hang and almost stop. The plane was flying, but so slowly it would never reach the lake. Brian looked out to the side and saw a small pond. At the edge of the pond, there was a large animal. He thought it was a moose standing out in the water. And so, still looking, so stopped, the pond and the moose and the trees. He slid over them now, only 300 or 400 feet off the ground, all like a picture. Then everything happened at once. Trees suddenly took on detail, filled his whole field of vision with green, and he knew he would hit and die. He thought he would die, but his luck was going to hold on to him. A channel of fallen trees and a wide place leading to the lake appeared in front of him. The plane, committed now to landing, to crashing, fell into the wide place like a stone, and Brian eased back on the wheel and braced himself for the crash. But there was a tiny bit of speed left, and when he pulled back on the wheel, the nose came up.
We are going to be having staff meeting at 9 o'clock through Teams, but if you feel comfortable social distancing, we'll be in the staff room if you'd like to sit in there and listen. Thanks.
And he saw in front of the blue lake, and at that instant, the plane hit the trees. There was a great wrenching as the wings caught the pines at the side of the clearing and broke back, ripping just outside the main braces. Dust and dirt blew off the floor into his face so hard he thought there must have been some kind of explosion. He was momentarily blinded and slammed forward in the seat, smashing his head on the wheel. Then a wild crashing sound, ripping of metal, and the plane rolled to the right and blew through the trees, out over the water and down to slam in the lake. Skipped once on the water as hard as concrete. Water that tore the windshield out and shattered the side windows. Water that drove him back into the seat. Somebody was screaming as the plane drove down into the water. Somebody screamed, tight animal screams of fear and pain. He did not know that it was his sound, that he roared against the water and that took him and the plane still deeper down into the water. He saw nothing but sensed blue, green, cold water, and he raked at the seatbelt to catch it and tore it with his nails loose on one hand. He ripped at it until it released, and somehow the water was trying to kill him, to end him. Somehow he pulled himself out of the shattered front window and clawed up the blue. He felt something hold him back. He felt his windbreaker tear, and he was free, tearing free and ripping free. But so far to the surface, and his lungs could not do this thing. They could not hold and were through. He sucked in water. He took a great pull of water that would finally take him, and his head broke into the light, and he vomited and swam, pulling without knowing what he was doing, without knowing anything, pulling until his hands caught at weeds and muck, and screaming until his hands caught at last in the grass and brush, and he felt his chest on land. He felt his face in the coarse blades of the grass, and he stopped. Everything stopped. A color came that he had never seen before, a color that exploded in his mind with the pain, and he was gone from it all, spiraling out into the world, spiraling into nothing, laying on the grass. And that is chapter 3. Thank you for listening, everyone.